More than a dozen Democratic presidential candidates spoke at the DNC summer meeting in San Francisco Friday. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker said he had one message.
Everybody in this room agrees that we got to beat Donald Trump, but the question is how? We don't beat Donald Trump by making it all about Donald Trump. That's what he wants. We beat Donald Trump not by emulating him, not fighting him on his terms, on his turf, not by matching his tactics or getting down with him in the gutter, by dividing and demeaning and degrading. That's not how we win. We don't win by triangulating our positions based on what polls say. We don't win by modulating our message, and we definitely don't win by running scared.
CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns spoke with Cory Booker's campaign manager, Addisu Demissie, earlier about what's next for his bid.
Senator Booker has made the next debate stage first hurdle, but is he doing anything differently this time around to prepare, since it seems that the field is narrowing?
Well, look, we don't even know yet who we're going to be on the stage with. We'll find out on Thursday whether there are going to be two stages or one. But Cory's going to do the same thing that he did in June and July, which is put his best foot forward and put his message forward of bringing people together and healing this country after Donald Trump, no matter who he's on the stage with. And I think that's why we won the debates in June and July, and I think why we're going to have a good performance come September 12th or 13th.
So earlier this week, Senator Booker said that Democrats can't go with a safe bet. It seemed like a not so subtle swipe at the former Vice President Joe Biden. Was that the goal?
No, it absolutely wasn't. Look, I think Democrats are having a healthy debate right now about what they want to see, what we want to see in our next nominee. And what Cory was saying and what he's going to continue to say from now until the convention next year is that we need to show the best of who we are, not the worst. We need to also talk about what we're for and not just what we're against. And he says it all the time, and I think it really is one of the foundational pieces of our campaign. Beating Donald Trump here has to be the floor and not the ceiling. Democrats have higher aspirations than that, and to do that, we need a nominee who can speak to every piece of the party, every element and contingency of our party, and that's how ultimately we're going to win, by motivating the base, by turning out swing voters, and by bringing people into the process who haven't already been there. That's what Cory's been doing his entire career and what he'll do if he's the nominee.
At the last debate, though, he did go pretty hard after Joe Biden on the issue of criminal justice reform. Is that something that we're going to see him do a little more of?
He'll never hesitate to speak truth to power, and on issues about which he's very passionate, like criminal justice reform, something he's been leading on literally since he was in college and writing columns in the newspaper about police misconduct. He'll be happy to draw contrast with his opponents, but ultimately Democrats are going to have to choose. This is a debate. This is a competition between how many, 21 now, candidates that we have in the race to see who's going to be the best person to take on Donald Trump and bring forward the Democratic message. And I think where that requires contrast, that's what we'll do. But Cory Booker is focused really on putting his positive message forward about unifying the country and healing us after the darkness that Donald Trump has brought over the last 3+ years.
So some of those other rivals have been really critical of the DNC for their debate rules. Do you think those rules have been fair? And can you tell us kind of how much money that you're spending, or what are the resources required to get those grassroots donations to kind of get yourself up in the polls to make the debates?
Yeah, look, the rules are the rules. We're going to play by them just like everybody else. I think ultimately I'm happy that Cory is one of the 10 candidates who's qualified for the debate. And I think, what's most important here is that we have a process that everybody knows what the rules are. They know early what the rules are and that we can play by them. So it certainly did and does affect our strategy. Getting on the debate stage has an important winnowing effect on the field, and it certainly has in this race, and we think it will going into September and October. But it's just one step in the process, and we're going to take the rules as they're given and play by them, and ultimately, I think, emerge victorious come next July in Milwaukee.
Can you kind of walk us through what your vision of a path to victory looks like? Does he have to win South Carolina, for example? I mean, he is polling towards the bottom of the pack. Walk us through what's realistic at this point.
Well, first I'd say I don't know if he's polling towards the bottom of the pack. Depending on the poll and in the state, we could be in 5th, 4th, 6th out of 20 plus candidates. I think that's a pretty strong position to be in. But ultimately, we're building this campaign to win in February, March, and April of next year, not to win a poll in August of 2019. That's what we've been doing since the day we got in the race back in February, and that means building an organization, particularly in the early 4 states, to ultimately peak late in the winter of this year and next year, and do well, I think, in those early 4 states, which will catapult us into success in March and beyond. And you're seeing the momentum now here in August. We've picked up endorsements. We have the most endorsements of any state legislators, any candidate amongst state legislators in Iowa. We have the first state legislators to endorse in New Hampshire, in South Carolina. We just picked up a whole bunch of endorsements from across the country, Michigan to Georgia to Wisconsin. So we're on the rise here, I think, and that's the point. We want to peak when people really start paying attention to this race, and that's in the winter and spring of next year, and that's what everything that I'm doing is pointed towards.
I want to switch to a couple of policy points. We saw some signs this week about, some concern about the state of the economy. Is the campaign fearing a recession? The president says that Democrats are kind of cheering against the economy.
Yeah, we're certainly not rooting for it. And I think anytime the president is saying something like that, he's trying to score political points where it's totally unnecessary and uncalled for. What we're rooting for is for the working and middle class people of this country to do better, and they're not doing better under this president who's giving tax cuts to the wealthiest among us at the expense of the people who need it the most. And so what Cory's going to keep doing is talking about his economic message, which is about empowering people who need it. That includes giving tax cuts to people who are working class and middle class. 150 million people would get a tax cut under his plan, the RISE credit, and also raising the minimum wage and doing other things that ultimately I think are going to help people who are struggling under the Trump economy do better under a Booker economy.
I also want to talk about guns, because that's another issue that Cory Booker has been talking a lot about. When I was with him in Iowa, he was very focused on the issue of gun safety and his policy. He put out a comprehensive proposal earlier this year. But do you think Democrats are doing enough to make this a driving issue for voters? How do they keep it at the forefront? I mean, we've seen this issue kind of come to the fore and then fade a bit. But is it going to be really a driving issue for voters this time around?
I'll tell you this, it will be for Cory Booker. It should be for Democrats. It is a driving issue because people are dying every day. 100 people every day die from gun violence in this country, whether it be by their own hand or by a homicide, and it's unacceptable. And so what Cory said in Iowa a couple weeks ago is something that he's held to over the course of the last few weeks, and I promise you he will hold to over the course of the rest of this campaign, which is he's not going to let the death of our fellow human beings pass with another media cycle. He's going to keep talking about it. We just had a roundtable about his gun safety plans in Los Angeles. He talked about it in Nevada last week. He talked about it in New Hampshire the week before that. We're not going to stop talking about it. Cory has the boldest gun plan in this Democratic race, including the very simple proposition that if you need a license to drive a car, you should need a license to own and possess a gun. He was the first candidate to come out with that. And so as long as we keep talking about it and unify around that as Democrats, I do think it's a message that motivates our base. And frankly, it's something that Republicans and independents agree with Democrats on. So we should not cede any ground to the president or the NRA or anybody else who are trying to divide us on that issue.
Addisu, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it, and we'll see you out on the trail soon.
Can't wait. Thanks, Caitlin.